Here's a strong, emotionally charged hook point for your script. Have you ever felt trapped by someone's money, their control, their promises, and realized it wasn't just about cash, it was about power over your life? Today, we expose the 5 money manipulation tactics a narcissist uses to keep you powerless, and how you can break free before it's too late. Narcissists often understand, on a level that seems almost instinctual, that control is not simply about force or dominance, it is about dependency. They recognize that when someone becomes reliant on them, they have a lever over that person's actions, decisions, and even sense of self-worth. Financial control is one of the most effective ways to create this dependency, because money is not just a tool, it is deeply intertwined with security, autonomy, and identity. When a narcissist controls the flow of money in a relationship, they are doing more than dictating spending, they are shaping the way you see yourself and your ability to navigate the world. At first, this control may appear subtle or even caring. They might offer to manage finances under the guise of helping you, claiming it will make life simpler, reduce stress, or ensure stability. But the subtlety is what makes it so dangerous. It begins with small concessions, small dependencies that seem convenient or even beneficial. You may think you are accepting guidance, but in reality, you are giving away your autonomy piece by piece. Over time, the person who once offered help becomes the gatekeeper of your access to resources, and suddenly, choices you once took for granted become fraught with anxiety and second-guessing. Every decision you make feels scrutinized. Every request for financial independence is met with hesitation, resistance, or criticism. This is the hallmark of control. The narcissist wants to cultivate a sense of incapability within you, to subtly convey that you cannot function effectively without their oversight or permission. This manipulation is particularly dangerous because it attacks not just your wallet, but your confidence. As humans, we tie our sense of competence and independence closely to our ability to manage our own lives, and when someone undermines that, they are effectively undermining your belief in yourself. You begin to internalize the narrative that you are inadequate, that your judgment is flawed, that your choices are unreliable. This is not accidental, it is deliberate psychological engineering. Once that belief takes root, it becomes easier for the narcissist to maintain control, because the less you trust yourself, the more you rely on them. Another aspect of this tactic is the gradual restriction of resources. At first, access may be partial or limited in subtle ways. You might be encouraged to spend only within certain boundaries, or decisions about major purchases are questioned repeatedly. Then, over time, access can be further restricted, making you feel trapped. You might start to experience fear around financial independence, anxiety at the thought of making your own choices, or guilt for even contemplating autonomy. This method works because it leverages basic human needs: security, stability, and the desire for support. By controlling money, a narcissist creates an invisible cage. They may also use comparison and judgment as tools. They might highlight your mistakes or perceived financial mismanagement, often exaggerating or distorting reality to reinforce the idea that you are incapable. This constant undermining chips away at your confidence and reinforces dependency, creating a cycle that is difficult to break. It's a slow, insidious process, and one of the reasons why so many people remain under the influence of a narcissist's control for years. The key to recognizing this manipulation is awareness. Understanding that your autonomy is being compromised, that your ability to act independently is being subtly restricted, is the first step toward reclaiming control. Awareness allows you to observe the patterns, to identify the strategies being used against you, and to begin disentangling yourself from the psychological grip. It also requires a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths about the dynamics of the relationship. You have to accept that the control exerted over you is intentional, that the patterns you may have dismissed as quirks or generosity are in fact tools of manipulation. Once you recognize this, you can start building strategies to reclaim your independence, to assert boundaries, and to rebuild the skills and confidence necessary to navigate your own financial and personal decisions. Guilt is one of the most powerful tools a narcissist wields, and when combined with financial manipulation, it becomes almost impossible to detect at first. Narcissists are experts at making you feel indebted, not just for material support, but for your emotional labor, your time, and even your very presence. They will remind you constantly of what they have done for you, of the favors they've extended, of the resources they've provided, and all of this is framed in a way that makes you feel obligated to comply with their wishes. At the surface, it may seem reasonable they are reminding you of contributions they've made, but beneath that surface lies a strategic attempt to create a psychological chain that binds you to them. You start to measure your own value not by your actions, achievements, or integrity, but by how well you reciprocate the debt they have imposed. Every financial gift, every loan, every small act of support becomes a subtle instrument of control, and over time, it becomes a habit to weigh your decisions against what they might think or demand. The narcissist understands that guilt is deeply tied to human morality and empathy. You are conditioned to feel responsible for the well-being of others, especially those who have helped you, and they exploit this instinct. They frame their needs as urgent, their desires as reasonable, and your hesitation as selfish or ungrateful. Slowly, you begin to internalize these expectations, feeling pressured to justify every choice, to seek approval, and to act in ways that preserve their sense of superiority. One of the most dangerous aspects of this tactic is its invisibility. You may not even realize that your behavior is being dictated by guilt. You convince yourself that you are acting out of loyalty, love, or moral duty, when in reality, you are responding to subtle coercion. The emotional weight of guilt can be crushing, and the narcissist knows how to maintain it indefinitely. They may withhold support if you do not comply, or suggest that your independence is a betrayal of the bond between you. This keeps you in a constant state of self-doubt, questioning whether your actions are morally sound, whether you are failing to live up to obligations you never voluntarily accepted. To break free from this cycle, it is crucial to distinguish between genuine moral responsibility and manipulation. Awareness of this dynamic allows you to recognize when guilt is being weaponized against you. It requires courage to challenge the narrative that you are indebted and to reclaim the right to make decisions based on your own judgment and values. Developing this understanding is not a matter of dismissing morality or empathy. Rather, it is about learning to apply these qualities on your own terms without allowing them to be exploited. As you begin to separate the influence of guilt from authentic ethical responsibility, you start to see the narcissist's strategy for what it is, a deliberate attempt to maintain control over your choices and your sense of self. With this insight, you can start to reestablish boundaries, to act decisively without seeking constant validation, and to rebuild a sense of agency that has been eroded over time by the subtle, insidious pressure of manipulated guilt. Narcissists often employ a tactic that is both subtle and profoundly destabilizing: intermittent reinforcement. This is the strategy of giving rewards and support in unpredictable, inconsistent ways, and it is designed to create dependency and uncertainty. They might offer financial assistance, gifts, or approval, but always conditionally. One day, they might be generous and affirming, making you feel secure and valued. The next, they withdraw support or express disappointment over minor perceived infractions. This unpredictable pattern keeps you off balance, always striving to regain favor or predict their next move. The psychological effect is intense because humans naturally seek stability and consistency. When that stability is denied, when rewards are given sporadically, it creates anxiety, obsession, and heightened sensitivity to the narcissist's cues. You find yourself walking on eggshells, constantly analyzing every word, every gesture, trying to understand what will earn their approval or avoid their disapproval. With financial matters, this tactic can be particularly damaging. Resources are given and withdrawn in ways that seem arbitrary but are calculated to reinforce control. You may receive financial help when they feel generous, only to have it rescinded later, leaving you scrambling and unsure of your own stability. This unpredictability keeps you dependent, not only on the financial support but on their emotional validation as well. The narcissist's goal is to keep you in a state of uncertainty where your confidence wavers and your autonomy is undermined. They want you to doubt your own judgment, your ability to manage resources, and even your capacity to act independently. Over time, this leads to a heightened sense of vigilance and a diminished sense of personal agency. It is a form of psychological conditioning, subtly teaching you that security, comfort, and even happiness are contingent upon their whims. One of the reasons intermittent reinforcement is so effective is because it taps into basic human instincts. The brain is wired to notice patterns, to anticipate rewards, and to repeat behaviors that produce positive outcomes. The narcissist exploits this natural tendency by providing inconsistent reinforcement, making you more likely to comply, to seek approval, and to prioritize their needs above your own. The effect is cumulative. Every instance of conditional support strengthens the cycle of dependency and diminishes your sense of independence. It creates a tension between hope and fear, between desire and apprehension, and this tension is precisely what maintains the narcissist's control. To counteract this tactic, you must cultivate consistency and stability within yourself. You must learn to evaluate situations based on your own principles, not the unpredictable standards imposed by another. Developing clear boundaries and a strong internal compass allows you to navigate relationships without being manipulated by the allure of intermittent rewards. Recognizing the pattern is the first step toward breaking free. Understanding that the fluctuation of support is a deliberate tool of control and not a reflection of your worth or capability. Once you internalize this awareness, you can begin to regain autonomy, make independent financial and life decisions, and no longer allow your sense of security or self-esteem to be dictated by the unpredictable actions of a narcissist. Subtle sabotage is one of the more insidious tactics a narcissist uses, and it is often almost invisible until the damage is done. Unlike overt control, which can be recognized and confronted, sabotage operates under the guise of helpfulness or concern. A narcissist might offer advice on financial decisions, investments, or budgeting, presenting themselves as knowledgeable and supportive. On the surface, their guidance seems reasonable, even beneficial, but the true intention is to steer you in directions that benefit them while limiting your independence. Over time, this creates a pattern in which you become increasingly reliant on their input, questioning your own judgment, and internalizing the belief that you cannot make sound decisions without their oversight. One common form of subtle sabotage is misdirection. A narcissist might give incomplete or distorted information, emphasizing certain facts while omitting others, so that your choices are constrained without your awareness. They might highlight risks selectively, exaggerating potential losses or dangers to make you defer to their authority. Conversely, they might downplay risks that could harm them financially, enticing you into decisions that ultimately serve their interests rather than your own. Another form is creating financial dependence through small but consistent interventions. They might provide loans, cover expenses, or offer gifts in ways that appear generous but slowly entangle you in obligations or limitations. Each act seems minor in isolation, but cumulatively it fosters a sense of reliance, making it psychologically difficult to act independently. In addition, narcissists often undermine your confidence by planting seeds of doubt regarding your financial competence. They might question your choices, criticize your planning, or subtly mock your understanding of money, always in ways that appear concerned or constructive. This constant questioning erodes your trust in your own judgment, reinforcing dependence on their guidance. The manipulation is effective because it operates below the level of conscious recognition. You may believe you are making independent decisions when in fact your choices are being shaped by carefully orchestrated influence. The narcissist's goal is to maintain control while preserving the appearance of generosity or mentorship, so confrontation or resistance seems unreasonable. The psychological impact of subtle sabotage is significant. It not only affects your finances, but also your self-esteem, your sense of competence, and your ability to trust your own judgment. Over time, the pattern becomes self-reinforcing. The more you rely on their guidance, the more opportunities they have to manipulate outcomes in their favor. Awareness is critical to breaking this cycle. Recognizing the tactics being used, questioning the motives behind advice or financial intervention, and verifying information independently are essential steps toward reclaiming autonomy. Building competence and confidence in your own financial decisions is equally important. Education, deliberate practice, and self-reflection strengthen your ability to act independently, reducing vulnerability to manipulation. Ultimately, subtle sabotage is about control through invisibility. The narcissist does not need overt domination. They rely on shaping your perceptions, influencing your decisions, and eroding your confidence in ways that are difficult to detect. By understanding the mechanisms at play, you can begin to disentangle yourself from these patterns, reassert authority over your financial choices, and restore the independence that has been systematically undermined over time. Projection and blame shifting is one of the most psychologically destabilizing tactics a narcissist employs, and it often goes unnoticed, until it has deeply affected your confidence and self-perception. The essence of this tactic is deceptively simple. When problems arise, the narcissist refuses to accept responsibility for their actions and instead projects the fault onto you. If there is financial mismanagement, they may insist that you are careless or incompetent. If boundaries are crossed, they claim you are overreacting or being unreasonable. This strategy is designed to undermine your sense of judgment and make you doubt your own abilities. One of the most damaging aspects of projection is that it creates a distorted reality in which you begin to question not only your decisions but your perception of events. You might replay interactions repeatedly in your mind, trying to reconcile the narcissist's accusations with your own understanding, and this constant mental scrutiny erodes your confidence. Over time, you may start to internalize the blame, believing that the problems you face are your fault, even when they clearly stem from manipulation or deceit. Narcissists are adept at framing their projections in ways that feel plausible, even logical. They may point to past mistakes or minor lapses, exaggerating them to justify their accusations. They might highlight your perceived weaknesses or vulnerabilities, turning them into evidence of your alleged inadequacy. The goal is to make you feel insecure and dependent, to create a psychological environment in which you are constantly seeking approval or reassurance. Another facet of this tactic is the emotional manipulation that accompanies blame shifting. When you attempt to defend yourself or assert your perspective, the narcissist may respond with anger, indignation, or emotional withdrawal, reinforcing the idea that confrontation or resistance is futile. They may accuse you of being defensive, unreasonable, or ungrateful, further confusing your perception of reality. This creates a cycle in which you are simultaneously blamed and punished, leaving you trapped in a state of self-doubt and heightened sensitivity to criticism. In financial contexts, projection can manifest in accusations about spending habits, poor budgeting, or lack of foresight, even when the narcissist has exerted control or influence over those decisions. The intent is to maintain a narrative in which you are seen as incapable, while they remain the competent guiding force. Breaking free from this tactic requires a clear understanding of its mechanics and a strong commitment to self-reflection and self-trust. You must learn to distinguish between genuine accountability and manipulative projection, recognizing when criticism is rooted in deception rather than truth. Establishing boundaries and asserting your perspective without succumbing to guilt or defensiveness is essential. This involves cultivating confidence in your judgment and seeking objective validation of facts rather than relying solely on the narcissist's distorted narrative. Over time, developing these skills allows you to reclaim control over your decisions, restore your self-esteem, and resist the subtle coercion of projection and blame shifting. By recognizing the deliberate nature of this manipulation, you can begin to disentangle yourself from the psychological hold of a narcissist, reaffirming your autonomy and reinforcing the internal framework necessary to act with clarity and integrity, free from their attempts to destabilize your sense of competence and worth.